Hello. Live. Kind of. Pre-recorded, but still technically a live stream, sort of. Just without anybody having the ability to comment.
So how about well, hello there. I could do the world's worst Sean Connery impressions. And you know what? Somebody has to.
Go for it.
Go
on then. Put you on the spot now. Go for it.
All right. What was it? When Cortez reached the New World, he ordered his crew to burn his ships. Therefore, his crew were well motivated. You know, shit, absolutely shit. But I can work on it. And it wasn't even, I don't even think I got the lines right, but you know, I used to be a great fan of Sean. And then I thought, if you love Scotland so much, why are you every other fucking place but?
Quite a few people like that.
And then you realise he's another Masonic tosser, you know, all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah.
And then they always then get involved, or they put their 2 cents in just regarding like Scottish affairs. Does it mean you even live here? Fuck off. But
well, exactly. Was that for Marbella, you know, or Marbella, you know, or oh wait, was that from you know, where was that again? Was that from the Bahamas? You know, pass me another blonde. This one's full.
Quite good at impressions myself, to be fair. Like quite a lot of accents I can do, but I mean, there's a few that I wish I could perfect. Every time I attempt them, it sounds dreadful. Like I want to be able to do the Geordie one, but I always end up sounding Welsh. But aye, just
why are you?
Why are you, man? Like, hey, that's all I can do.
Like, I swear, right? I used to think that because obviously this was before you were even born, before you were even an itch in your father's pants. I'd been up in Aviemore about, let me think, it would be about 85. And at some stage, I went up to Inverness, not to stay, just to visit from Aviemore. And dear God, it was, to me, it was like the land of the square jaw, you know, women-wise. Seriously, quite fucking hardy, really. No, let me correct myself. Land of the quarter Jill and the square-jawed woman. Yeah, they were hardy, but you know, and we're certainly not shy, that's for sure. But you know, I just thought, I preferred Aviemore at the time because, well, it was very Christmassy at that. You know, at that point, Aviemore used to have quite a bit of snow. I don't know if it's the same. You know, it has it at different times and all the rest of it, you know, but...
Do you know, on that, like a couple of months ago, I can't remember what month it was, but it was the most bizarre. I think it was during the summer, funnily enough. I think it was summer. Aviemore had snow, in the Cairngorms and that. Like, the middle of summer, you know? Aviemore is a nice place. I quite like Aviemore. I've been there quite a lot, usually travelling through it to go to, like, you know, further into the Cairngorms, but... I hate the
E9. You've just triggered me. Me. I remember meeting a Scouser in Aviemore, and he says, "Hey, you want to go? No, what was it? He says, do you want to? Oh, fuck it. I'd have to really practice on the Scouts, but it was something like, do you want to go to Kingussie?" And I went, Kingussie. But you know, there's a place there. There's Kingussie or whatever nearby.
Yeah, but people call it Kingussie or Kingussie.
But the weeness, and you know, I'm not trying to character assassinate an entire city of people, but here goes. But it was, funnily enough, it was the same fucking year that I went to let me think, it would be Jersey, right? And what I learned about Scousers between Aviemore and Jersey was the shameless bumming of a cigarette, no matter how cheap they were. I mean, like, you know, Jersey was pretty cheap for things like cigarettes. But they would still fucking scrounge them off you. You know, hey, how you doing, mate? You know, you got a spare ciggy there? You know. Yeah, I'm starting to be getting, you know, I'm getting a wee bit more, you know. Anybody who's watching this is like, especially the occultist underling fuckwits, you know, they'll be like, you know, they'll be tasked with, well, how do we profile this fuck? And how did what angle did we then character assassinate? You know, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and, you know, you get a lot of that. It's part and parcel. If you're gonna say anything on the internet, especially if it makes any sense at all, remember you're dealing with people, many of them, which it's the goal justifies the means. So, you know, they'll character assassinate, belittle, whatever else. I hadn't been aware so much until about the noughties about things like astroturfers, you know, paid for tossers, male and female. Although apparently as well now non-binary. Because anyway, but who are tasked to go after people, even if they're making comments, all the rest of it. But when they came across me, like in the days where, honestly, the Scotsman was the first, from as far as I know, main paper online publication that decided, do you know what? Why don't we have a comics section? And honestly, it was the early days of that one. You could put in URLs. You could put links to vids. Imagine the days where you could do that. You know, like people are making comments about something, whatever the storyline was. And if somebody came at you and went, oh, that's just absolute rubbish, Scott. I mean, really, you know. And then you go, well, explain the following link. And then all of a sudden people are like, holy shit, Scott, how do people not know about this? Well, you can imagine the IT and the fucking Scotsman. I think, to be fair, I think one or two of them must have been, well, actually, he's talking a lot of sense. So for the first wee while, and when I say wee while, probably a couple of years, you were getting away with putting in rational reason. I mean, it was nothing outrageous. It was just facts. Yeah. But you could put URLs in. Imagine it. In fact, at the very birth of the Scotsman's comments section, when you signed it up, you know, signed in and all the rest of it, you could have your name that, you know, it come up your name, but as you clicked on it, it went to a URL. So it went to, at the time, a website, you know, your website. I mean, it was really, can you imagine that? Seriously, as you're making comments and you're talking any sense at all, and people are like, who is this guy? And you're off to a website. I had the AstroTurf first, because at the time I had a wee IT website, right? And I get feedback like, you're obviously a one-man band. You're obviously just, you know, and the belittling, all the fucking rest of it, blah, blah, blah. But if you've got skin like a rhino's fucking arse to insensitivity, then it wasn't an issue for me, because more and more that you're making comments, it was getting to the stage. I had one client who had a scaffolding company who'd phoned me up and he said, hey, Scott, they're actually asking, what's your thoughts on the following story? I'd go into the Scotsman and then reply. Seriously, can you imagine days like that? Seriously.
No, I mean, the closest thing maybe to that nowadays is the Daily Mail comment section, and even half of the time, comments. Yeah. I think I remember you back in the day, like you occasionally used to make videos where you would scroll down at the bottom of the comments. But, like, every single time it was like a controversial story, or the comments were either like removed, like any controversial comments on said story, or the comments were just turned off. But yet, if it was like a fucking article about Peter Andre or something, then you best believe you'd see the comments. Like, you know,
well, that was the thing. Yeah, again, when the Daily Mail picked up on how popular the Scotsman was, honestly, it's hard to believe, but the Scotsman was one of the most popular online publications, because it was, if not the first, one of the first. And I would definitely say that their IT staff, whoever's running the website or the rest of it, was top notch. If you actually look at the quality of the pages on the Scotsman at that time in the noughties, and you'd probably have to look up some, you know, website, you know, that takes you back. There's a number of names for them, but that you could actually probably pick up like an image at the time from that website, because even their own website deleted an awful lot of the data that was held at the time. You know, if you went back and looked, it wouldn't be the same. That honestly, they really had a pretty impressive, very professionally done website at that time, and they were doing okay. It was when they started muting and changing and adapting the comment section so that you couldn't put in URLs, then you couldn't do this. And I'm sure, hey, listen, there's very valid reasons why you would mute URLs, because after all, it could be going on to some hacking site, whatever else. I get all that. But the IT staff in the Scotsman at that time were pretty top notch. But over time, if you're discouraging essentially people just making comments, then they'll just go elsewhere. Now, if the comments are as important to the reader as the story itself, then the reader starts going elsewhere. Do you see what I'm saying? The Daily Mail has, for example, got to such a point, because honestly, see about 2014, 15, maybe even 16, up to a point, I'd make a comment, I'd get like 3,000 plus thumbs up, easy. I'm not joking you. My stats rate was 90%. I've still got a video on hard drive where I'm literally going through and showing you, like, look, here's my stats. Look at it now. And I just refreshed the page. And, you know, I couldn't work out whether it was external hackers, the Daily Mail itself, obligations within moderators, whatever. I don't know. But I had the vid that proved it was being destroyed, because up until that point, my ratio of thumbs up to thumbs down was 90+% consistently. Yeah. And so it got to the point where anything that you would say, in fact, I had to walk away from the Daily Mail for about a year or two. But I went back because I thought, you know what? Don't let ego get in the way of this. Just, you know.
Just keep plugging on.
Yeah. But then they started getting really cute. And then they came out with this thing, which is in theirs to this day, which I reckon is actually costing them market share by the day, which is this AI software run by a company called Open Webb. And you know, it's the usual Masonic doublespeak. Open means closed, you know? And I'm not even going to go into. I had a wee look into the background of who runs that, and it would certainly play into the hands of some people who believe that it's only one religious aspect of society that's involved in it.
Every single time, as the expression goes.
Yes. But so do you know what? I thought, stop feeding that monster then. Fuck him. So I've never even signed in to even thumb up a comment. And I've noticed that you get the email. Oh, here. Somebody's thumbed up one of your comments, but it's all AI. AI is the only people that gets to see your comments for people like me. It's the AI software. So to humor you, because ultimately you're in your own wee bubble thinking that other people are thumbing it up, but it's actually AI. Because other commentators noticed this, that it was anybody who thumbs up your comment always had like a color in their name. So it'd be like olive green, thumbed up your comment, or orange, such and such. You know, it became very obvious that the only thing that was seeing your comment and humoring you at the same time was AI, so that you keep the flow of traffic coming in. You see where I'm going? I could explain it better, but ultimately,
no, I get what you mean though.
And the other thing, of course, is there's still some great stories in the Daily Mail. That's the thing that gets me. Occasionally, they will have some great stories, and amongst the rest of it, whatever goes for journalism. I just think it's underling occultist activists who get in as journalists. But remember, when you're dumbing down society, I would argue you're dumbing down a lot of the useful idiot occultist underlings as well. I mean, I've said for years that you are, and people could say I'm wrong, and I'd hold my hands up to it, but it's roughly, I reckon, honestly, when you work out between the various interconnected groups, you are talking about roughly 10% of society. They may not know as much as other aspects within that 10%. You know, there'll be the useful idiots, the degrees of X, Y, and Z. But when you start looking at theosophy, humanism, the New Age movement, and by the way, that's massive, and most people don't realize it. You know, how do you get some of these idiots in? Because remember, you've got to have new blood into the occult constantly. So you get them into the yoga centers, things like that. No jokes, honestly. Oh, you want to come in and enlightenment and all the rest of it. And the next thing they're talking about chakras. And, you know, if you see, well, that's a gullible enough idiot, but seems to be in a, you know, a position of authority here or that, you know, oh, here's some books, blah, blah, blah. And you get them, you know, through that way. Others, it's through Freemasonry. And of course, people say, oh, but there's no women in Freemasonry. Well, how about Eastern Star and variations on the theme? I mean, seriously, when it comes to councils, I'm not joking. It's like witchcraft. By the way, witchcraft and Freemasonry are one and the same. When you look at it, their initiations, even their quotes, so mote it be. I mean, honestly, the complexity. I'd love people like William to get more focused. You know, or for anybody watching this who's not aware of William, he goes under, what is it? That's life, but not as we know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fair play to William. When I'd gone back onto YouTube, what was this? My fourth attempt by this point. You know, fair play to William. He did share on his community page on his YouTube. Hey, you know, go and sub to Scott's channel. And that helped me go from, what was it? Something like 50 subscribers. I think I got about as high as 200, but I think it's sitting now, even months later, it's still sitting at, I think it's 199 subs. It's humbling times, I'll be honest, for people like myself. Because how do you tell the new crowd? Actually, there was people in here a while earlier, like early adopters of YouTube, and that was back in the day. Honestly, you could like have, you know, thousands of subscribers fairly easily at that time, as long as you were talking some sense. You know,
my first video on this channel, I think it was like 2016 or 2017, and I was only about 18 or 17 at the time, and I was talking about like conspiracies and stuff like that. Hence my name, you know, Resisting the Lies. You think my name's called Resisting the Lies because I used to think Nicola Sturgeon was a liar? No, it's because I was like very balls deep in all the conspiracy stuff that
you actually thought Nicola Sturgeon was a liar.
I'd hate for anybody to think that my name was Resisting the Lies because, you know, I call out the government. Like, no, like I'm stuck with it now. I mean, if I could go back, maybe I'd have a different name. But my point is, though, from the years after my first video, that was, what was I say, 2016 or 17. And my first video on this channel was actually about chemtrails, for fuck's sake. The video's still there, you can still see it. And I was standing on a building site recording all these chemtrails. But from that point all the way up until 2020, so we're talking a good maybe 3, arguably just heading on to 4 years, I only managed to accumulate 400 subs in 4 years. And then I got 2 shout outs.
Hey, you started talking about chemtrails and you were surprised. Wait a minute, you know.
But then from 2020 to almost at the end of 2024 now, like that's when the lockdowns and all that sort of stuff started. And I got 2 shout outs from 2 people, No Chance and another guy called Calamity. They both gave me shout outs, which got me practically over the course of one weekend up to 1,000 subs in 2020. And from 2020 until, just as I said, we're on the verge of 2025, I still haven't managed to get like to 3,000 yet. I'm like, it's impossible now. And I deleted my Odyssey probably a bit too harshly. I probably shouldn't have, but obviously because
I mean, it's not Bitcoin or whatever the fuck, but it's some, you know, digital pish that you know, you can tip other creators, and I didn't have a lot on this thing, whatever the fuck it's worth. I have no idea. And I went, well, I'll throw a couple of whatever that is in your direction. And then you fucking shut the channel down about 3 weeks later.
The reason that I did that, like, in all honesty, is because, I mean, it's no secret my sort of public fucking meltdown the last couple of months.
But no shit.
YouTube,
no shit.
Yeah,
you know,
but YouTube was linked to my Odyssey. So every time I uploaded a video to YouTube, it was obviously going on Odyssey as well. And then I couldn't, like, I hated waking up in the morning if I'd been steaming. And like the night before, and with that, that horrible cringe thought, oh no, not again. But having to go into 2 separate websites to delete the same fucking thing, I was like, I had enough, so I just deleted it. Right, regretfully, maybe I should have kept it. I do still have Rumble, but like Rumble's shite. I mean, I don't mind it in terms of like watching stuff, but in terms of like getting any subscribers and that, it's like next to impossible. Same with Odyssey for that matter. I've had Odyssey since like 2021, and I never even managed to get like 200 subs on it.
Do you know what I like about Odyssey is that Odyssey, I've not had an issue with, and like, sorry, you can't, that goes against our whatever the fuck, blah blah blah. I've had none of that. Oh, watch after this. Doink. Sorry, but so basically that's it. I tried Rumble. The interface at the time was just bloody awful, right? I mean, Odyssey's a lot better, but where I think Odyssey can be improved, it's just being able to put memes on your community page. That's seriously, how fucking hard is it for Odyssey to do that? Because be assured.
The other thing they need to fix out as well is, like, if you've ever watched, it's more noticeable after the stream's finished, but if you've ever watched a live stream on Odyssey, if you go to the comments, instead of like how it's done on YouTube, like you can get the live replay of the comments, but underneath the video you'll have the actual comment section. On Odyssey, it's a combination of every comment that was said during that stream, and also people commenting after the stream's over. It's just it's a shit show if you go through it. Like, but I don't know. I just think there's a lot. It's very difficult nowadays on the internet to be able to sort of speak properly and freely, because you run the risk of having either a report headed your way, like somebody trying to report your channel. You can have your channel taken down. You get strikes, and the issue, sadly, is like if you get booted off. I know, if you get booted off YouTube, you do struggle, because sadly most people, YouTubers, are sort of preferable first choice.
No, I'll tell you what, it's because they're lazy fucking arses. That's what they are. That's what they fucking are. Seriously. I really want to know about this, Scott, but only on this and blah blah blah. Right. Well, you know what? Just fuck off. Seriously, honestly. I don't want to humor people. The last fuck, you'll notice I hardly do a vid where I'm in camera. I really, because it's not about the ego. I mean, believe me, I what was my first channel? YouTube. Honestly, very early adopter. Had thousands of subs. And at one stage, actually, for a very short period of time, I actually got some money in my direction. And it was only in a matter of months, like. But at one stage, I think it was at 90 to maybe something like, I got 91 month, and I got something like 120 quid another, which literally paid for like a mic. It's not like I was just going, oh, here, off to the pub, But I put it into just getting, decent. Because remember, a lot of people, they'll scrape and put something together so that they've got a decent enough sort of presentation format, but honestly, see now, the attention span is so many people is so low. You've got to make it almost comedic with lots of witty little clips from various movies to try to think about this, just to get the point across. See, I'm early Gen Xer, right? And oh, fucking no regrets about that. Seriously, no regrets. Oh my God. None of us were lightweights. I got the, honestly, seriously, we're talking at a time where in Scotland you got what was called the cosh. That was the bell. Fuck me, it hurt. Absolutely, it hurt. But you know what? You got a bell anyway. You got your cheeky wee chappy, and at some point, old school teachers like, right, Webb, up you come. Oh, but you know what? From the fear of it to actually experiencing it, it was almost like a rite of passage. That's basically it. Didn't happen to me a huge amount. It's not like I was some evil little bastard at school. But you got the message. There's a line, you crossed it, there's some consequences. That's why they got rid of the belt in 84, roughly about 84. Most people that were leaving school at the time went, that's a bad idea. Well, what are you going to tell people? I went, right, 100 lines, and I want that in by tomorrow. No. Well, it's not like you're going to the belt on them, no. Yeah. And, all right, you're going to go to detention.
Yeah.
Now, then going to the... by the way, for a short period of time, I was at a place called Fetty's, and, you know, I could go into a lot more detail about that, but... and I know my folks would never have paid full whack for it, so I must have showed some promise or whatever. Although records may be rewritten as we speak about that one. But I got the cane in there. Oh, jeez. Holy fuck.
Closest I ever had to that was a
Oh, my God. I remember one of my fellow pupils, because I was in schoolhouse at the time. One of my, what was it? It was a family called the Shenanigans, and I think they were from Nigeria. They must have been really wealthy. Well, for a start, going to Fetty's. But and they were there as boarders. But I think it was three brothers. One of them was a bio, and another one I think was Delhi Shenanigans. In fact, I remember at one stage, one of them was trying to do a rain dance on the Queen's lawn at Fetty's. Just anyway, when I got the cane one day, I came out of my eyes were watering. Oh, jeez. And I went, I'm not crying. I'm not crying. And I remember one of the Shanine brothers going, I'm not crying. I mean, you know, the mockery he was giving me. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's got to hurt. That really has got to hurt. But even then, it was like banter. You go over it, you know? Yeah. In the noughties, in the 90s and the noughties, it was all of a sudden talking about, we need a safe place for people. In fact, how it went, certainly from my days, let me think of when I was about in Edinburgh in the 90s. You started noticing it with the council pools, Portobello being an example. You go in there and all of a sudden you'd hear, can all men please leave the building? Blah, blah. And you're like, what's going on here? And it was the introduction of women only, because here, that way it gives them a safe space to be away from men. The villainizing, the demonization of men in the 90s, I certainly heard in Scotland on the radio, Radio 4, Radio what, every fucking half hour. There's no excuse. You know, like, wait, what? Zero tolerance. And it was just basically demonizing men ongoing, you know, to the point that it instilled a lot of paranoia in women, because they were literally being told and taught, well, you know, the subliminalist bloke, there really are quite shady people here, you know, just be vigilant, you know. Into the noughties, it was then, they really went into the schools and the colleges, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we need safe spaces for them. Here, you're having a bad day. Here's a wee room. It's all warm and cozy, and you know, and it's all soft furniture things, and you know, and for some, as far as I could work out, they could do a bit of skiving while feeling that traumatizing, you know. And then, of course, in the unis, what was this? Would be the mid to late noughties. All of a sudden, there's this jazz hands thing, just to sit there and go like that, because somebody in the fucking audience was intolerant to people. In fact, you should put a trigger warning, because, you know, wait a minute, no trigger warning. Some fucker just sat there clapping. You see what I'm saying here? It was to turn society into absolute fucking lightweights.
And I think even now, like, to your point about schools as well, because obviously that's where I started to fucking... I didn't really notice it so much when I was in school, per se. I mean, I know that the government in Scotland, like, they greenlit the overhauling of education. I think that process began in the early 2000s, you know, the curriculum for excellence. But I don't really think, from memory anyway, it was really like we weren't seeing the fruits of its labor, so to speak, while I was still in school. But most certainly it's a lot more evident now. Like it's very evident. I mean, just to your point about schools, like because you hear like toxic masculinity. This is the new term they use. I fucking hate that word. Like, but then as well, what I've noticed, I mean, because it is very insidious the way that it's done, and it's only when you spend enough time actually looking at it and putting the pieces together where you actually start to see like the true nature of what they're actually doing when they present children with this stuff. So like the claim they're even going so far now as to say things along the lines of like men rape women because of misogyny. Okay, what? Or domestic abuse and domestic violence occurs because of misogyny. Well, the argument I would say that is, well, what about like women who beat up other women? What about women who beat up men or whatever? Like, is that misogyny, or does their argument falls flat on its face? But they say this stuff when then they start introducing, oh, we need to break down outdated views in school. So that's why they're trying to like coerce as society moves forward boys away from being boys. They want girls. They're basically trying to like swap the genders around, so to speak. They want girls to reach for the stars and become career driven and focused, and they want boys to explore their fucking feelings.
Look, think about this, right? You have been trying to reach out lately to anything perceived by council or state as some sort of professional help to
yeah, we'll get on to that.
To evoke a feeling of being listened to.
Yeah.
Women, manned. Did I just see that? Manned 24 hours, 24/7. Yeah. Or should we say peopled 24/7? Yeah. No problem, though. Blah, blah, blah. X, Y, and Z. Guys, suck it up. Well, if you really need to say anything, there may be an answer machine for you.
Yeah, well, I mean,
find another national number or internet,
Yeah, like that video. See this mic? I hate it. It's so broken. But yeah, like that video that I posted this morning when I phoned Men's Aid, right? After I fucking phoned Men's Aid, because I just wanted some advice off them, right? So the number's defunct now, okay? Because they're not getting enough government funding. So I found another website, a similar charity, and I phoned them multiple times, and it just rang and rang and rang and rang and rang. And then it gave you the opportunity, or if you wished, to leave them your name and number in their answer machine. This was at like 10:30 this morning, and I never heard fuck all day. I then phoned Citizens Advice to try and ask them if there was any other sort of charity that was similar to the two aforementioned. And they gave me another website, like Victim Support or whatever the fuck it was called. Tried to phone them, rang out. I mean, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And I mean, it's true, like, because at the end of the day, that when I'm obviously going to counselling at the moment for like issues relating to alcohol. And the woman there that I've been speaking to, she'd never even heard of Men's Aid when I told her about it. Because I'd made reference one of the last times I was there that I was debating speaking to them to see if I could get some advice. And she'd never heard of it. This is an NHS worker who had never heard of Men's Aid. I mean, how mental is that? Well, mental is that?
You see, the thing is, right, you've said it. You found it. Oh, there's not sufficient funding. Because there's zero incentive to fund this. Look, it's about divide and conquer. When you look historically, First World War, right? We need to go and fight the good fight. And when you actually reflect on the storyline getting there, the whole thing was an absolute bollocks. And fine authors like Anthony C. Sutton had put that bang to rights about the causes of these things, who funded it, who stood to gain, all the rest of it. This was part and parcel about ongoing eugenics. In Scotland, as I'm sure you know to this day, there is, at the moment still, monuments, although I would say it's sort of like the worship of death. Most people don't realize that there's more to this, but whole families of young men, young, healthy men, dead. Yeah. So if you're wanting to like continue the Highland clearances, for example, look no further than, and how many of the church was standing there, God is with you as they're off to their death. Yeah. And that's scary. All right. Increase in death by suicide.
This is the latest statistics for Scotland on that, just on that topic. And to your point, it says there, that there was 792 probable suicide deaths in 2023, an increase of 30 from the previous year. However, just this section here, just to your point, male suicides increased by 39 to 590, while female suicides decreased by 4 to 202 deaths the latest year. Male or female, suicide fucking grim. But I mean,
absolutely. Hey, listen, I'm far from anti-women. Bloody hell.
No, either am I. Like, I mean,
yeah?
I don't like. I really do not like fucking feminism. I really don't like it. But as far
feminism was never for women. It was about the destruction of femininity.
But like, or should maybe I should rephrase that. I hate feminists. They fucking annoy me so much. Arguably, sometimes worse. They annoy me more than these race baiters. You know.
Well, you see, honestly, when you look at people like Edward Bernays, who was a nephew of Sigmund Freud.
Aye.
And you know, he wrote a book. I think it was about 1928 called Propaganda. It's a book everybody should read. It's not a thick read. You know, like, let me tell you something. Here's a thick read, right? I have yet to read this book, right? It's like it's 1,000+ pages. This one, which is Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and honestly, I should be embarrassed. And a lot of people, by the way, whatever you want to describe them as, truthers, blah blah blah. There's a lot of them out there who will never confess to books they've not read. They'll just quickly go, "Oh yeah. Oh, it was ages ago. Blah blah blah." I haven't read this one. I read Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. That's another. There's a good few pages in that book as well from memory. And I think I've read it about twice. And it's a book everybody should read. Do I think that Ayn Rand's a great person and a great individual? There's probably a good chance she was an underling occultist. Other people have said, yes, she was definitely an occultist. There's more around that I need to read, but this one, and it's all small text. I mean, it is absolutely tiny text. So I'll give you an example of how different that text is. Well, here's that hideous strength, C.S. Lewis. There's the difference in the text, if you can see it, right?
Aye.
So even although, and this isn't a light read either, well, it's a great read, but this is like 500 and odd pages, but 1,000 pages of text, it's probably nearly half the fucking size of that. Probably means that this book is actually, you could argue, at least 1,500 pages when you think about it. And if you're thinking about text size, so yeah, that's going to be fun. But so hence the reason why I've started on things like this Molin Leaf, just in case anybody thought, what the fuck is he drinking there? So Molin Leaf, I drink it because it's great for the lungs. I also find it's quite relaxing. I used to drink coffee. Now, years ago, it was instant coffee. Nowadays, I would never, ever, ever touch instant coffee. I would never recommend it to anybody. Probably the best instant out of many instant coffees is probably the Dow Egbergs, but I actually found that in certain aspects, it wasn't that great for me either. Anyway, over time, you realize that there was a benefit in ground coffee, and then so you start taking it a bit more serious, a great coffee. But I was drinking, oh my God, probably about 5 or 6 a day, easy, right? And although, and probably that you could tell that in many of my vids, hello, it's just very well caffeinated. But actually, when you do the research, when the eugenics brigade started encouraging people to consume coffee, you've got to start thinking about that again and go, well, what happens to fertility? What happens to virility? What happens to the bones? Things like that. And then you start finding it literally strips minerals out the bones. If you want the onset quicker of, various bone conditions, coffee's up there. So good number of months ago now, I just stopped drinking coffee, and it was just like, that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
I've never really been a big coffee drinker myself. I don't really have any, like tea. I don't have any of that stuff. And even when I was a wee boy, I was never really like that interested in, like, you know, your proverbial snacks that most kids have, like fucking cake, chocolate, sweeties, and whatnot. So, I've always been like that. Like, and I mean, I remember last year at the dentist. This is a true story. I was at the dentist last year, and it was a new dentist, and he was practical. I mean, I'm not sure if we were on about women earlier on. Had I been a woman, I would have been convinced that this was sexual harassment. Like, I mean, I smoke. I've always smoked, but like, he was fascinated with my teeth because of the age that I am. I was 28 at the time, and like, I don't have fruit really either, so that I'm not getting any. I've not had any like erosion from. Yeah, I'm getting none of that, and I've had no noticeable issues with my teeth for a guy that smokes. And because, as I say, I never went near like sweeties or tea, you know, any of that growing up, and I'm the same now. It's absolutely fascinated my teeth. You know what I mean? It's like, so I came out of there with a wee cheeser on my face, like, oh yeah, boy, for a guy that smokes, I'm doing no bad. Like, I mean, my front teeth are fake though. Like, half of them are fake. I got slapped. Well, I say slapped. I got punched. When I was about.
Well, you got punched.
Oh, I got punched when I was about 14. I got jumped by 3 boys when I was about 14.
I can well relate to that shite.
First punch took like fucking half of my front tooth off, and like chipped another 2. So I've got like those wee fake filling things on them. Like, you'd never know at all that they were fake. But that was a hoorna beating I got. Three guys, 18-year-olds. I think one of them was 19. Beat the living fuck out of me. Do you know the reason they did it? Was because I was tall and they thought I was older than I actually was. You know, because I was always a big boy. I'm 6'3" now.
That is more common than you realise. And I mean, I listen. I can well relate to that. I got the shit kicked out of me in primary, shit kicked out of me in secondary, and you know, sometimes, you know, there's children can be little shites.
Yeah,
they can be, and they and collectivism on that, and just go with the flow, and you know, but I'll tell you honestly, this sounds crazy. But because I lived in, when I was first adopted, I lived in a place called Clermiston, or as they knew it, most people said it at the time, Clary, or as others called it, the Clary Jungle. And it was an interesting place. Actually, on reflection, you know, I actually reminisce about these days because, you know, if your folks were out or whatever else, you could always go to a neighbour. Everybody knew each other, and you always could go to a neighbour, get some juice or whatever else. All this kind of stuff was really great. Occasionally you get a wee smacked face, but I'll tell you what, children didn't have to worry about back then was being stabbed, run over, all the rest of it, all the other things, because always, and even when it came to like a beating occasionally, somebody would step in. Hey, enough. You know, that kind of stuff.
Phones out.
You know, but now they just whip their phones out.
Bystander effect in fucking full swing, like.
You know, but I certainly remember when I moved out to a place called Dkeith, and that was when my mother, who adopted me, remarried this guy, Bob Webb, and he was 19 years her junior. Yeah, so fair play. But anyway, when your adopted dad is 7 years older than you, it's about, you know. Anyway, but I remember going out to this. It's now defunct place called Dkeith High School, and when I went in there, it was very much sort of mining communities. Yeah, I mean, seriously, Dkeith in the early 80s. You know, phenomenal place in some regards. Clermiston was also, in some regards, a phenomenal place back in the 70s and possibly 80s, because you had Clermiston, which was definitely seen as a very working class area. Oh, fuck. That's an important call. Is there any chance that you can pause that and maybe even look over this and you could call it part 1?
Yeah, 2 seconds.
Right.
There you go. Back live now. What did you say, sorry?
All right.
Sorry about that, folks. You know, needs master and whatnot. Needs master. Yeah.
So where were we?
I
think we were talking about, anyway, so Dkeith I mean, we could do separate hangouts or vids about this, because I truly think it needs to be discussed, because from your viewership point of view, you're going to have more than, people from one generation, and it's important to remind older generations, oh yeah, all right, I remember that, blah blah blah, because it's important. But when I moved out to Dkeith, some people actually thought I talked, or in their words, dead snobby. Seriously, So I got a bit, but at some stage, you know what? The beating, you almost you became immune to it, because, but at the same time, at some stage, and I would advise anybody, don't put up with people's shite. Don't go out looking for problems, but don't go, seriously. Because obviously, anybody that went to a teacher, well, you're just a grass. Yeah. So and that can cascade to much worse. So, but you know what? Giving them it back, and if they think oh, wait a minute, bullying this guy is still going to get me a fucking sore face, no matter how much I've hurt him, it dissuades them. Yeah. Suddenly they go, all right, it's not such a, and distance is made. Yeah. Because seriously, these are formative aspects of your character, and if you let it get to you, because children can be little shite. Yeah. It's something that's like, mind you, and it's not necessarily something that relatable to myself, but for many great families, whether they're working class or otherwise, speaking to an uncle or just speaking to extended family members, because back in the day, and it wasn't that long ago, we're still talking about a time where a lot of families still live fairly near each other. Going further and further afield for work has been more of a thing, I would say, in the last sort of 30-ish years, because it was into the 90s that I started noticing the onset of agency work. See,
don't get me started on that fucking
totally.
I hate agency work. Before we did this thing we're doing now, I was thinking of a few things. I mean, there's no coincidence that I used to get called DJ 10 tabs. I've got about fucking 15 tabs open here about agency. The conversation of agency work did actually spring to mind at the time, because like even the day before, like this morning, like the counsellor that I've been working with for the last month or so, and just on that note, briefly, just for anybody who's listening at this point, like I think I would be very disingenuous as well as insincere if I was to turn around and say I'm miraculously recovered. There's obviously going to be a few fuck ups going forward and whatnot. I just have to try my damnedest to stay away from alcohol completely. Not that
no. Hey, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. Anybody that says try and it's like bye. What I mean by that is, like, look at it in a business situation. See, I'm interviewing you and somebody comes in and will say, well, I'll try to do that. Fucking, there's the door. Bye. Seriously. What you need to be doing is, if you ever feel the fucking need, phone a friend. That's essentially it. And by the way, anybody that's listening that can relate to any of that at all, make better choices. If you are going to have a beer, have a good one. Have one that doesn't give you a hangover.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing about me, though. Like, I mean, fucking hell, there's like, I don't want to segue too much because before I forget about the agency thing, but that's also a very good point and can be brought up straight after. But just briefly, like, my counsellor suggested to me that I should try and get a sick note from the doctor. And I don't want to go down that route, but I mean, like, I've been applying for a lot of shit that's not agency work, and I never hear fuck all. So the only two choices at present I've really got is to go back to agency work or go down the sick note route. Really don't want to do that, so I'm probably gonna have to bite the bullet, go back to agencies. But I hate agency work. You get thrown from pillar to post. You get told, oh, this job, it's going to be for 6 weeks, and then you get there, it's for 2 weeks, or you'll get there and it's shit. Then if you want to quit, then you end up getting blacklisted. And the other thing as well about agencies, and it isn't just an issue in the construction industry, but oh my God, they have completely corrupted the construction industry, but they're also obviously in like retail and delivery driving and whatnot as well. But it gives employers the ability to just get you to fuck when they don't need you anymore, as opposed to, you know, if you're on the books, it's a bit more difficult unless you've done something to warrant being fired. You know, if work dies down or things get quiet, they can't just get rid of you. But if you're with an agency, you can. You know, you can just get told to bugger off the second you're not required anymore. I hate it. I did. And then have you ever, you know, umbrella companies as well? They started working with umbrella companies. So basically you get taxed twice. You'll get, say you're getting, for example, £15 an hour. That's what the agency will tell you the job is, right? Just for argument's sake, £15 an hour, okay? But because it's going through umbrella, by the time that money comes to you, it's about £13 or £12 an hour. They're taking money off you just effectively. They're like basic. What are those people that when you're self-employed? Oh, what are they called? The person that does your books for you. That's basically what umbrella companies do. They're just robbing, scamming bastards. Yeah, but yeah,
accountants. I think that's the word you're looking for.
Sorry, what?
Accountants.
Yeah, that's what robbing, scamming.
Hey, do you know why you're having that sort of brain fog there? Because we're doing a live. Well, it's not live. You'll upload it at some point, but you're acutely aware that you're under a cosh pressure-wise to.
Oh, usually I'm no bad, but it's been a fucking while since I've done a stream or anything like that. Really,
look, it's the first time you've had a one-to-one chat with me, so that's enough to put anybody.
But to your point there about alcohol, like for me, it's like I have over the years on and off had issues with alcohol, like not to the extent where like if I don't have a drink, I'm rattling. Like, you know, I'm not on like a proper alcoholic. Even my counselor said that, like, she doesn't think I'm an alcoholic. Like, but I'm still going through the necessary steps with her and whatnot. This like 6-week program, etc. But it's like every time I do get pissed, especially when I feel like shite, that's when problems start. You know what I mean? Oh man, many times I say I've deleted my Odyssey over there.
Look, you know you're an alcoholic. I'll jokingly say this. You know, you'll know when you're an alcoholic is when you grab a pint of milk and it's turned to cheese before you've drank it.
Oh mate,
when you've got hands like a fucking hummingbird, you know. or the world's best foreplay merchant, you know. Anyway, joking apart, but my experiences of agencies, I think, is relevant in the sense that this was in the 90s. My experience, I'll not name the company, but they're well known. And of course, most people who went into agency work went in with the premise. In fact, there was an inference. Listen, you work with us, you might come across a company you like, and they like you. So
I've heard a lot of shit.
Employment. Look, to me, in many respects, it's got somewhere on that socio-psychopathic scale of Amwe promoters. You know, there's a company, American company called Amwe, which I reckon is another route into the occult, because if you're gullible enough to, you know, like they have these big presentations. Hey, well, you know, look at me. Fuck, Rolls Royce, 5-bedroom, 8-bedroom house. Oh, God, pass me another fucking yacht. But to get that, so these inspiring people, and they say, so right. So what we want you to do is buy lots of our stuff, store it at your house, and then sell to all your relatives. And over time, because you're being indoctrinated, I believe it takes aspects of many religious cults, you could say, and sort of combines this into a way of, you know, if you can sell this shite to so many people, you're definitely somebody that they want to know about, but on other aspects. So they'll draw you into the occult that way. Because if you can sell to your own granny, your mother, just to get you ahead. Do you know what I mean? To look, did you, you know, and they've got these various products that I wouldn't rate, to be honest, but it's all part of this witchcraft. Anyway, you've got these same type of people in agencies, and what they do is they sort of give you the impression that working for them, that if, you know, at some stage you may come across an employer that's interested in you and leads to a full-time job. But what they don't tell you, well, certainly straight off the bat, they don't tell you, is that they've got contracts with these companies, whereas if they do find a member, an agency worker who works for them that they want, they have to pay a huge fee.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's a rarity that anybody actually gets onto full-time employment within a company that way. Yeah. The other thing is, initially, certainly from my experience in the 90s, and not for a huge amount of time, but like they would phone you because, you're at their beck and call. And even when you think you're off, you're not, because they'll stop phoning you unless you answer. Yeah.
You get blacklisted, don't you?
So initially they would be saying to you things like, we've got a job for you. And just say, for argument's sake, I'm not saying it's this, but it's quite literally lifting pig shit off such and such on a farm for obviously not a lot of people. Well, actually, I'm busy today. Right. So they worked that if you said what the job was, and it didn't appeal to people, so what they did after that was just to say, are you available for work? See, there's a big difference there.
Yep.
And if you say yes, then they'll come up with, well, there's pig shit to be, but you see where I'm going here. A lot of it is psychology, which goes back to Freemasonry. I can assure you it goes back to Freemasonry, because I would argue that most of Freemasonry is about hoodwinking the public. That's what it is. That's why you've got so many of these sociopathic, psychopathic fucks who in many respects are intergenerational. Well, my dad was in Freemasonry, I'm in Freemasonry, blah, blah, blah. And it's not like they boast about it to the herd, to what they perceive as the herd, the common people, whatever. But it's all about this knowledge in the know. But a lot of what they discuss behind the scenes is absolutely about how to absolutely extract as much as possible out of your gullible staff to help you ascend financially. Seriously. They are absolute, and there is as many women involved in this as there is male. And until people start understanding the Masonic mindset, they will never, ever realize what they're actually fucking dealing with. And that's why, it's like there's this thing which you could describe as almost like an occult of personality. Say you are in a place of work, or it's you tend to find this, although not exclusively, but with, say, independent businesses that are doing really well, and they'll have their staff doing X, Y, and Z while they're off living the dream. And don't get me wrong, many Masons are motivated grafters because there's obligations to continue their ascension of various things, and they also have to be very useful to various other occultists. But there is this trick that they pull with many, where they'll pull you aside and go, listen, I can talk to you about certain things, but I can't talk to other people about. So you get this bond of where you will bend over backwards for people who will continue to make more and more fucking money, and your life never gets that much better. Yeah. And this is just one example of what the occult's all about. And it's what and I would argue parliaments are an extension of that. The illusion that there's people there looking after your interests, when essentially what they're doing is looking after their own, and of course the occult networks they are involved in. That's what we're dealing with. That's why they can sleep like fucking babies when others suffer abject, ongoing misery.
Yep. Hence the term puppet. That's what I think. That's probably I know it's cliche. It's fact, it's a very old term to, predictable term even, but that's probably the best way to describe politicians. The most of them that you see in our parliament or the Westminster and that, they're nothing more than self-centered, selfish in many respects, money hungry, but above all else, they're puppets. Anybody that actually thinks that like John Swinney in a Scottish context sits in backroom meetings with the boys and the girls from his cabinet, and they discuss what they're going to do to make Scotland a better place. Bullshit. They get fucking documentation slapped on their desk. The experts, always the experts. Whether it's climate change stuff.
Be assured, many politicians you'll find Not every one of them's intergenerational, but many are. Yeah. And especially when it comes to councils. Oh, look at their family. They've been in public life. They've been doing public life. Good, fine works for decades through their, because they know it's a fucking good earner. That's what it is. When, when the son or the daughter's old enough, they're straight into the Eastern Star, or they're straight into the, Freemasonic lodges, whatever. But it's not everything. For some of them, and remember, this goes back, and I found it over the decades. The education community, you'll find that some people, especially things like art departments, all the rest of it, I would say that many of the management of these are looking for malleable individuals with some type of personality traits of which they can move forward with. That's why they then they will push them on to acting, or or for some, maybe it's the legal profession. You get people into college and unis, and you say, right, okay, you want to be a lawyer, right? So have you thought about public speaking? So there's another one. You get them in through, for example, the students' unions. They're all useful tools as well, by the way. This encapsulates all age groups, yeah. So you'll have handlers behind the scenes. They'll work out their personality traits, all the rest of it, how malleable they can be. How do you, if they're not playing ball, how you can get at them, how you can, do you know what I mean? Put doubt in them, all the rest of it. I mean, it's a very complex life we live in, right? And of course, one of the things that what these elite occultists, these bloodline families and whoever else are all about, and I would say there's many bloodline families that you wouldn't even realize or perceive them as in a position of vast wealth and power, because not all of them are living in castles for a start, right? Some of them are actually, shall we say, just different classes. They've been in amongst us in some respects, but provide a function that is part of your other networks. This is why I'm saying, honestly, when you look at it, you're not dealing with 1% of society. No fucking way, because it would never be, it never happened. What's ongoing, and name the country, by the way, is not down to 1% of society. They're quite literally in amongst us. They all have their functions and whatever else. And honestly, no jokes. The complexity of it is enormous. It's enormous. But you're not going to hear this on Hangouts. Just this circular fucking, did you see what that puppet did? Oh, this is terrible. What we need to do is blah, blah, blah.
See, on that, wait, I mean, let me share this tab quickly, right? This is my YouTube channel, right? But I've pointed this out before to people, because this is what used to fuck me off. The good old days, only a month ago, eh? But like, for example, though, right? Just looking at the views here. So I've got a clip from the BBC, Labour wet wipe on GB Energy impoverishing pensioners, and another one, geopolitical expert Sturgeon on Ukraine. So 1,000 views on that one, 3,000 views on that one. But look at the fucking videos right next to it, okay? Children's Right to Health Environment Agenda 21, 25 views. Learning for Sustainability, 15 views. Rights Respecting Schools, Agenda 23, 43 views. Like, this is a common theme the further you scroll down my channel. And that has pissed me off, like, consistently over the years, because, I mean, I don't really give a fuck what, I don't know, some guy in our parliament said, unless it's relevant to like the bigger picture, aka Agenda 21 and whatnot. I don't care if somebody, even when Alex Salmon died, the big hoo-ha over that. Yeah, it's unfortunate the guy died. You don't wish death on anybody, but I mean, is it really worth fucking banging on and on and on and on about it? He was a 69-year-old obese man. Like, Jesus. It's sad, but do we need to hear it? Like, that was.
Look, I have a few thoughts on that. I certainly, but like for a start, there's just zero chance that he wasn't amazing. Simple as. Just fuck off. Just which part of fuck off do you miss? Seriously. The other thing was, I heard from certain. I remember I had a client years ago. He's now dead. He was a taxi driver. And I said, what's your thoughts on Alex Salmon? He said, Alex Salmon. He said, I had him in a taxi once or twice. Let's just say I got the impression he didn't like him. But they're all theatrical players. He's getting back to, see, for example, I remember years ago, a client's daughter said to me, "Look, Scott, I'm thinking about becoming a lawyer." I said, "Hey, fair enough." All the rest of it. I said, and I'm only passing on to her what objectively I could see when it comes to the success of many lawyers, and people who are lawyers could say, but Scott, you could have been telling her about so many other things. Yeah. But I did say to her, listen, have you ever thought of public speaking? Have you ever thought of joining a debating society? Have you ever thought about doing, like, what do they call it? Amateur dramatics, whatever. Because unless you've got the confidence to stand up in front of a number of people and say whatever, then maybe being a lawyer, certainly from what the impression the individual was giving to me, like why they wanted to be a lawyer. And because she went, no, I couldn't do any of that. And I said, look, if you want to be something, a lawyer of which would be acting in a court, and you could go off at tangents about that, but to have the confidence to do this on a regular basis and project your voice, and blah, blah, blah. Because after all, if you're acting on behalf of a client, you're wanting to, obviously, the objective is to get as good an outcome for your client as possible. The reality, well, it's many other subjects which I don't even know if I'd want to go into, because it's key to a lot of what you see in the courts. But the point is when you look at the makeup of a lot of parliaments, you tend to find that an awful lot of MPs have a legal background. Yeah. Certainly from memory, people like Tony Blair. Oh, by the way, he was an ex-Fetesian. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
He was at Fettes. Yeah. I think it was in the 60s or the early 70s. I don't know. But he was certainly at Fettes for a while. But that's why you got to hear that term for the length of time he was like a prominent politician, and of course prime minister and all the rest of it, was Tony. Well, I used to term Tony Blair's "I believe," because there is a very big difference between saying "I believe" and "I know." Yeah. So you can say as a politician, "I believe that the following will do X, Y, and Z," but that's just a belief. You're not saying "I know," because that's a big legal difference. You said you knew about that, and you didn't. And how many people? Look, I believed at the time that was the way forward. Completely different thing. It's hoodwinking on levels beyond belief when you think about it. And that is the art for many of them, of which they learn in things like law. Yeah, seriously. There is so much that, and maybe I'm not the best guy to be saying any of this, seriously. And remember now, people have got such a fucking low attention span. Even these hangouts, right? You ideally should have had something zipping by every few seconds. And, I'm seeing it with a number of, especially YouTubers. They can't just talk about something. There's got to be these little cuts that sort of seem to just make it that bit quicker. Do you see where I'm going here? Because people have become so short of attention. Whereas I'm from a generation that arguably intergenerationally, that handed down and through generations, the conversation in a decent pub, your ability to converse with, people of different backgrounds, and your attitude even towards the bar staff. I mean, we were off at many tangents here, but I've always said good bar staff to me are worth their weight in gold, because it's not just in the busy times, it's when it's not so busy, and you can gauge the customer as they come in. If they want to chat, a wee bit of interaction, and it'll stay longer, maybe have another pint, a wee bite to eat, whatever else, as opposed to being ignored. All those things and more. There is an art to communication of which the occultists absolutely are aware of. And when you look at politicians, they are but the finest actors, because you believe that that they are who they say they are, then they're working for your best interests. It's an art in itself, and among so many. I hope I'm making some semblance of sense here, but it's one of the greatest acting jobs is to be a politician, career politician. Seriously, they are now at the level, and probably have been for a while. You'll notice with many of them, they start using hand gestures. Like what they'll do is they'll subliminally to you as the viewer define what's negative. So say whatever they're talking about or they're being interviewed about, whatever direction it is, they've decided whatever that one is, it's the negative. So when they keep going with their hands in one direction and they're talking about a negative, and then when they're going to a middle ground and they're talking in a certain way about neutrality or whatever else, and then they'll point in another direction about the positives. And this is why I would say that when they're talking about interviewing politicians, they should have it just about here and look at their fucking face. Because, when you're talking to somebody and you're looking at their facial movements, you can pick up a lot. Yeah. All the hand gesturing and all the rest of it is there to draw you away from their face. It is absolutely all part and parcel of dumbing down. A lot of it's called things like neuro-linguistic programming, sensitivity training, various other things. Another thing that, and I know we're off at tangents, but are we? And it's another book that I really, I think I read a bit of it years ago, but I'd seen enough other data that I felt I didn't need to read the rest of it, but maybe I should. And it was by a guy called Saul Alinsky, and people should look into this guy. In fact, when authors write a book and they say this is to such and such or whatever, his was this is to Lucifer. No jokes. And the book was called Rules for Radicals. And I would argue a lot of what you're seeing going on in the schools and the education system and the medical profession, the sciences, all the rest of it, but certainly a lot of front-facing exposure to the public. A lot of people are highly skilled in what was talked about in books like that. Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Honestly, you can look at that in America, and a lot of what's happening, a lot of these various different groups, Black Lives Matter, all the rest of it. That's a book that's been well read, apparently, by many who are activists in the UK. And in all honesty, a lot of what you've got for teachers, journalists, various others are activists masquerading as teachers.
Yeah, I've said as much myself, especially when it comes to teachers. That's all they fucking are, really. But no, you're not wrong there at all. That's like the old expression, in it, the long march for the institutions. Most certainly. A lot of corruption took place several decades ago at the very bare minimum. I would obviously, arguably, even further back than that. But it's becoming very, very obvious as the years have gone on. I mean, obviously, my biggest bugbear for the last several years, it's not just been obviously the issue of immigration. My main point of contention for years has been the schools. As you know yourself, my channel's filled to the brim of me talking about or me posting stuff related to schools, because what's going on in fucking schools now is just, it's absolutely repulsive. And I'm not even just talking about the critical race theory stuff. I mean, that is a problem, which, on a side note, I mean, I've lost count of how many times I've tried to get other people to start covering that in Scotland. And nobody fucking does. The only guy to his credit who used to talk about quite a lot was Bruce Scott,
Bruce Scott, yeah.
Really anybody talks about it. I mean, it's almost as if they don't, I don't know if it's because they don't understand critical race theory or they just don't think it's as big a problem as maybe they perceive that I'm making it out to be. But the reality of the matter is, I didn't know anything about critical race theory either until I started to spend quite a lot of time over the course of the last few years looking into what these people were saying, the roots of it, and what they really are when they say certain things, what they're actually getting at and whatnot. And it became pretty clear to me that it's anti-white racism first and foremost. But there's this argument, though, you must have heard the term, that Matt Walsh guy, he did that Am I Racist film a couple of months ago, and it was him, and he's like an American conservative, and he kind of like went,
bearded guy, blah blah blah.
He kind of like went semi undercover and managed to get into a lot of these like places where these people operate, like, you know, and his sort of conclusion to take away from all is they're grifting. It's for money. Now, I'm not arguing that there isn't an aspect of that, but I think that's getting away from the point. These people hate white people, you know, like it's not just about money. They're making money out of it, don't get me wrong, but you know, that's the point that I wish that like people would just like, it's not just a grift. But the second thing as well about schools is this as well, like obviously the Sustainable Development Goal 4 is quality education. But if you go on the website, the UN's website, it'll tell you all the goals, 17 goals. But when you actually click on the goals, there's like sub points such as this 4.7. So, right, but there's this little section here. By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and an appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. You know, then it goes on to just say here, quickly, the Education Department's activity plays an essential role in the promotion of the core values of the Council of Europe: democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, as well as the prevention of human rights violations, all of which have a key role to play in ensuring sustainable development. In this context, education is increasingly seen as a defense against the rise of violence, racism, extremism, xenophobia, discrimination, and intolerance. Like, all the bullshit that we learn in schools nowadays comes directly from these fucking goals, in my opinion, or for the most part anyway. I mean, Scotland, one of the first countries, thanks to Nicola Sturgeon, signed Scotland up to these goals. And as a consequence of that, we've got global citizenship education in our schools, and we've got learning for sustainability.
You've got to hand it to them, though, that under the guise of Scottish nationalism, because I don't believe that, that nationalists decades ago were the same as nationalists in the last 3 decades. Yeah, there was a definite influx of people who, because see, this is where this could have only happened in a dumbed down society, right? Which goes back to, how did people become so dumb? And the thing is, back in the day that you got the belt, back in the day that not everybody got a gold star just for competing, you know? Like, seriously. I remember even primary school, you know, the egg and spoon and all the rest of it, you know? Somebody won, and then many times it wasn't you. Life's like that. You know what I mean? That's it. Hey, such and such is one, blah, blah, blah. Great. The next year, well, you know, you failed. You know, it's like, you know, what is it? You know, you get over it. Like, oh, you want to try harder? That's the fucking spirit. Seriously. Now it's like, everything's about, look, don't worry about it. It's not for everybody, blah, blah. But, you know, it's like, no. We're all in this collective, and it's all about, you know, it's been dumbing down people for quite a while, that even about reading books, what books are they reading? No. Everybody's got iPads now. They're not worried about the health problems associated. Did they do anything about duty of care on that? The parents even ask about that? Oh, you could go off with so many tangents. I actually have a lot of sympathy for police. Why? Look at all the technology that's strapped to these people, right? Of which they are blissfully unaware of its effect on the blood-brain barrier, its effect on their persona, their long-term mental health, how it affects serotonin levels. You could go into the detail, like, but the apathy is astounding. And so many people in the alternative media, they've got their, you know, their Apple Pods in or whatever else. And I'm thinking, well, obviously, this guy's not that clued up. Why the fuck would you be wearing something like that? You know, you could go into the detail. There's a willful ignorance ongoing of people who have just sort of got rid of any feeling of personal responsibility for your own health, your own mental well-being. You know, you want to be more articulate, read more. You know, I hear people and they go, you know, I wish I was as articulate as, you know, whoever it may be. Right. And I'll say, well, do you know what you want to do? You know, you don't have to do it in front of anybody else, but start reading books aloud. Start reading a few pages. If you've got a problem with a word, practice. You've got access to online, Here are various pronunciations of it. You want to gain confidence? Do things like that. All of a sudden, oh, wait, I'm a wee bit breathless. Right, so what's wrong with that then? Look, should be looking into that. Why is that? Blah, blah, blah. There is so much, honestly, that you can help people help themselves to be better than what they are, whatever they perceive that they are, right? I know we're off it. I mean, honestly, see, the next time we do this, I'll probably hardly talk that much at all. It's just like, it's just like, well, you've got the chance. But honestly, they leave it to people like you, DJ. Yeah, lots of people will sit back there munching away on popcorn because, well, they're bored. But it's, oh well, somebody else is doing that on my behalf, or they're talking about other people will get to know. No, it's like I say, parents, like your children are your responsibility. If you want them to be, you want them confident, articulate, smart, then put them in front of a TV or a PC for a computer game, because that way they're not bothering you. Well, why the fuck did you have kids in the first place? Seriously, honestly, I've helped many parents in many aspects just by, wee bits of advice. It's not always been appreciated, but it's funnily enough, many of these people that I was talking to years ago, they'll chat to you through Facebook Messenger or whatever else, or they'll look at your Facebook and, all right, okay. I know many Masons. I definitely know many occultists. Many of them are quite concerned about where things are going because, I always keep saying to them, look, it's not just about getting rid of most of the public now that they own every country in the world. It's humoring this 10%, the fucking handlers on top of that, this constant interconnected networks, a humoring various whoever's, and these occult elite want it all. Hence the reason of AI, because in dumbing down the whole of society, remember, many underling occultists are exposed to various toxins as well. So their usefulness over the long term is going to be limited. You can see already over the last few years, especially, some pretty pish-poor politicians that have managed to reach certain heights, but ultimately have failed massively. So if you're encouraging the population in mass and generally to, well, and I've said it before lately, imagine selling to, especially from primary school age onwards, to children that, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you have a politician, your politician that, you can just with your app, they can have a furry face. They can, why have a human politician at all? After all, we've already told you over generations that AI is so much smarter than humanity in general. It's only going to be a matter of time. You're not even going to have, human politicians. You'll maybe have a few wee figureheads, but for the rest of the public, they'll be happy with AI Joe or whoever. Seriously, over time. That's the level of dumbing down over a period of the last few decades that has left me in more than one occasion like, really?
Do you know on that point as well, though, like, this is like, I don't know if you've ever, I mean, I don't really know how much like political stuff you watch in terms of like people who do streams and whatnot, but there's like been a common sort of debate for years that I've never really participated. Every time I say that word, I fuck it up for some reason. Participated. There we go. In it per se, but it's the argument about accelerationism in terms of, some people think that if society gets so bad, but if it happens at quite a rapid pace, if society gets so bad and things go so wrong, that people will rise up. But just to your point there about like, so many things have happened, especially in like the last 10 years or so, especially, but even prior to that, so many things have happened that you would have thought in this, if acceleration was a real thing or could be a real thing, then it should have happened at that point. But it never does. And I think that's to your point there about, I was like, a good portion of society are either completely, there's a lot of apathy, but there's a lot of dumbing down as well. People, like, so many terrible things have happened. Things are arguably, even though a lot more people are living more comfortably than they would have been maybe 100 years ago in terms of materialism, society is not exactly in a great fucking place. You've got the borders wide open. You've got X amount of things going on, X amount of like blatant, like I would argue, treacherous, treasonous policies that governments have put into place and practice and are planning to put into place, and they're telling you all these things to your face that they're going to do it. Oh, they want everybody out their cars. They want everybody with heat pumps. They want to trans your kids and whatnot, and people just don't give a fuck. I don't get it.
Know, if we were just talking the application of common sense, why wouldn't you just be using technologies that people would have no problem embracing because they were effective? So, for example, heat pumps. If they fucking worked, people absolutely look. There's lots of, funnily enough, yet again, lots of Masonic toss bags, useful idiots, who had paid the money to get the heat pumps, the solar X, Y, and Z, everything else, blah blah blah, and then burst into tears because their bills, honestly, in many cases, like quadrupled, and they were walking around their, houses, and you notice with many of them, they're quite sterile, they're quite, which to me speaks to their character of many of them, especially the new blood Masonics and all the rest of it. But and they're in their woolly jumpers in fucking denial. But hey, according to the report, my property report says that I'm an energy efficiency A. as their very breath, you can see their house. Honestly, the madness ongoing. And remember, especially when they're now admitting, Bill Gates and his ilk are, they want to just call this thing global dimming, and it's just putting this layer of fairy dust in the atmosphere to stop so much sunlight hitting the earth. Honestly, the things you could talk about. I mean, if they were genuine about efficiency and energy, I would argue, should be free by now. Seriously, when you think about it. But it's always been about control. I remember, and we're talking more than 2 decades ago, easy. It was a technology called HHO. Thanks for that, Bella. My chow. And it was using hydrogen, running a current through it, but in such a way that was literally creating hydrogen, and they were using engines from a few, just 2 decades ago plus, and it was quite literally running on water. There was what was his name? There was a guy, Stanley Myers. He was one of many that were showing you. And I remember this technology.
Did he not get killed?
Well,
argue. Well,
let's just say he wasn't around that lot much.
Suicide today.
And suddenly, And I remember another example in Japan, and they actually did they did a report. They were like TV. It was on TV at one stage, just maybe not in the West. And they're like, yeah, hydrogen cars. And then all of a sudden, you never heard about them again. But there's definitely technologies absolutely out there.
Oh, definitely.
Which, I mean, imagine it, especially for marine. Yeah, think about this. Your fuel is all around you. What the fuck's the issue? Seriously. They know this. They absolutely have the technologies. I'm not going David Icke like. I'm just saying they absolutely have the fucking technologies. I'm sure I've got on hard drive somewhere a vid where they were showing you applications of this HHO technology using water and just some sort of catalytic aspect to it. And they were getting temperatures in excess of something like, honestly, it was something ridiculous, like 14,000 Celsius. It was like, wow, what? And it's just like water and hydrogen. And it just cut through anything. Just poof. The applications were absolutely enormous. And not only it maximized the safety, because normally you've got oxygen, oxyacetylene, all the rest of it, all these things hugely combustible. And they'd literally come out with a solution that was so easy to maintain, and in rural areas especially, without the need for constant, cylinders of oxygen and acetylene and whatever else. Oh, there is so many solutions out there, but people are so apathetic and dumbed down, yet they can tell you every aspect of their favorite celebrity, or that even possibly the testicular hair of their favorite football player. Honestly, it's so sad. It's unbelievably sad. And yet, and what I would say a lot of people are lacking is just banter, good characters. Don't burst into, like I've been called, and you don't remember, there was, it wasn't that long ago, people would go, all right, cut! And nobody took offense because it wasn't being said as if in some sort of derogatory way. People, that's why they've gone after the pubs, because they, for many, were the centres of many communities, especially rural communities. I'm noticing just now, more and more, all these pubs that are going to the wall. Because remember, up until, I'd say, probably the late 90s, you were legally allowed. In fact, they made a point of saying it. As long as it's a reasonable... See, most beer in this country, it's only about sort of 3.5%, roughly round about that. It was only when they got what they called the continental beers in that you started seeing the 5% and aboves. The exception of which would be certain real ales, all the rest of it. But most people brought up with a bit of common sense. I remember it would be the late 80s, and in between courses, I went to work as a barman at a place called the Stair Arms near Pathhead. And many people who would work in the town or in Edinburgh or surrounding areas, on their way home, they would stop at places like the Stair Arms. They'd quite literally sip a couple of pints, shoot the breeze with some locals, and then head home for their dinner. That, even things like that alone, kept so many pubs open, and there's community, and people would drive out from places like Edinburgh to various other places to have a relaxing couple of drinks and then just head back home. All of this was, do you know what I mean? Because when you look at the stats, seriously, and then, no, sorry, zero this, zero that, zero this. It has destroyed. And when you think about it, look at the level of technology that is being imposed on us now when it comes to cars. Radar, this, LiDAR, that, so much different technologies of which people are really paying through the nose for. And it's one of the reasons why insurances have gone up so much, because if they're ever, it doesn't necessarily stop them getting into crashes. Sorry, it's this, I'm getting to the leaf part of this tea. And it's definitely tickling my throat big style. But people have become even lazy through that. We need to get back to a bit of common sense. We truly need to do so, because that would help turn things around. Because I'm hearing more, even of late, oh, do you remember those times? And then they go, never to come back. You're literally fucking spell casting that it's never going to come back. That's what you're doing. Yeah. When you see these pictures and you go, oh yeah, there were better times, never to come back. You're literally saying, obviously not you, DJ, but people are literally saying then to themselves, well, it's never going to come back. Many things can be turned around, and you only need to go back a few decades ago when I would argue most of Western societies were at their best. You know that? Anyway.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that, even though I wasn't really around, obviously. I most certainly feel, I mean, obviously I'm like still in my 20s, but I mean, I do feel that I should have, I mean, you've probably heard that expression before, I was born in the wrong generation, I felt like that for a good portion of my 20s. I've got everything that I could ever want in terms of as I was on about earlier on, materialism and whatnot, but it's in terms of family values and stuff like that. I do feel like I was born in the wrong generation, because barely anybody that I went to school with has if they've got kids. Well, a lot of them are in long-term relationships, or some of them are even married, but barely any of them have kids. That used to be something that everybody kind of wanted, that they would strive for. Now they're more interested in either fucking going on to Tinder or going out and getting absolutely steaming at the weekend or whatever. I don't know. I just feel that even that in and of itself sort of part of a good example of sort of societal breakdown in many respects. Striving to want a family, and that seems to be something of the past now. for a lot of people. You know, materialism, career, more career driven and whatnot. And then the other thing as well, on top of that, that I've thought about over the years is that even for the ones that do want to have children, you know, back in the day, a man could go to work and support his stay-at-home wife or stay-at-home partner, or whatever, while she raised the children, etc. Now the pair of them have to go to work in order to just stay afloat, unless you're one of the fortunate few who ends up in a very well-paying job. You know, so like for those that want to get onto the property ladder to start a family, finding it next to impossible. I mean, you've got to look at the fucking waiting lists for getting a council house or even affordable housing, is the new term they use now.
And by the way, all of this is deliberate and by design, because like you know,
yeah, definitely, I agree.
You know, but remember, in the technocracy, the term constantly is experts. Well, you know, I could piss all over a number of what is perceived as fucking experts because their advice is pish. That is absolutely, you know, it's like, do you actually believe what you're saying? Or are you that dumb that you believe what you're saying?
I think
it's like
both.
for example, the inference to many over the last few decades, especially, but the onset of online and, you know, look, and remember, whoever's watching or listening, and there'll be a few occultists, there'll be maybe one or two think tankers or whatever else, but they'll be profiling you because it'll always be about attack, and it will be from, you know, everything from maybe councils to whatever, to your location, to honestly, seriously, see, it's about the goal justifies the means. There's no moral fiber in any of these tossers at all, and many of them, you know, even their own lives is certainly not that satisfying, seriously. But we're off at tangents. But let's just say, for example, marriage. Even as a child, as an early Gen Xer, when the hormones started to kick in, do you know what we had? Mum's Littlewood catalogue. Yeah. Oh, look at those small, you know. Oh, you know. and you know, because God forbid, you know, even as adolescent into teens, you know, a teens young lad, you wouldn't go into your average John Menzies or W.H. Smith or whatever and say, I could have that porno bag across there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I actually fancy wanking to death here. So could I just have no? And so there wasn't that much, you know, and believe me, when you look at hormonally, both sexes, female and male, it's not just the male testosterone that's gone down and obviously sperm counts. I would argue a lot of female aspects, their hormones has gone down. Because believe me, you go back a few generations and they were popping them out like the rate of knots. Now, the subliminal through the internet especially is, well, unless it's so tight, you know, a fanny that, well, I'm just not going to get any pleasure out of this. And all I've said to people is, well, if you're gripping your cock like you could pull a fucking spark plug out of a car, then maybe you should be thinking again, you know, because obviously, let's face it, you know, without going into too much detail, and people will be like, is he been drinking something? No, this is me sober. And believe me, anyway, but yeah, once they pop 2 or 3 of them, yeah, they're not going to be quite as grippy as you know. But I've actually found, you know, that it was never an issue for me. I'd gone out with married women. Yeah, it was absolutely, to be blunt, a much bigger fanny. But guess what? Larger surface area, more nerve endings, all the rest of it. She's fucking, well, howling like a banshee. You're obviously enjoying yourself. But if you're pulling your wire, let's just say, gripping it like, you know, you're throttling a chicken, that is maybe something you should be looking at again. Things like that. People, honestly, there'll be somebody who's just literally went over their coffee or whatever else. Like, I cannot believe that guy came out with that. But funnily enough, there was men banging their other half well into more, shall we say, sedentary ages because, well, as long as he could raise one and, you know, etc., they were still having very passionate nookie. That's basically it. But the subliminal is to many women, oh, no, you don't want to have a child because it's not going to be as tight and, you know, all the rest of it. That, honestly, I would say it's more to do with, if you can have a woman orgasming galore, the very nature of that, as long as the musculature around there is well maintained based on orgasms over time, you'd be amazed. I'd also recommend to women things like, because you know, I hear that they put it on their skin. What is it? Collagen. Well, a lot of our skin is made out of, well, with certainly collagen is a definite plus, a must, I would argue, for skin. Elasticity. Yes, here is where we're going here. So if the elasticity of said fanny is good, well, yeah. Oh, and how? So I think, and honestly, most people are by this time going, I cannot believe he said any of that. You're one of them. Yeah, you'll be like that. You'll probably just not even going, will I upload this? Hey, listen, even for the giggles, you know, but honestly, there is a lot of truth in that. That seriously, by nature, most women, not that many decades ago, well, I mean, they were popping them out at the rate of knots, yeah, and they were. Their other half certainly weren't struggling banging them. You see where I'm going here, you know. And so, as I said, people need to go back to and really have a good think about why they think what they think. Is what I'm saying. I could and have done gone off at tangents, and you'll probably be like, "What the fuck is he going to say in these in the next one?" But no. It's people need to just get a bit more real and put value on things like the true. See, I could never, for example, now I can go out with somebody who just spends their life in front of a TV, and I've seen many where they spend their lives as couples in front of the TV. Their kids are all looking at these fucking iPads or whatever else. There's very little communication. But if one of them, you know, like the other half or whoever goes out the room for a while, they might even text each other, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, but like that's one variant of hell. I would imagine you need to have people with similar interests and banter and that TV is not that important in their life to the point. Do you know what impresses me? Houses where they've not got TVs. You know that it speaks to me volumes. And I've found many occultists over the years. TV is just this tiny wee screen or whatever else that they might have in their kitchen to check the news or whatever else while they're making breakfast or whatever else. You can see that they value things like books, lined with books, all the rest of it. They've got their children active in so many different things. They focus on communities. Usually, you tend to find with many high concentrations of other occultists. But the point is they give their children, their offspring, many very diverse interests because that helps stimulate the mind, raise the IQ, and do so much more, and certainly gives them skills that will go with them for the rest of their lives. Whereas with a lot of the public, it's put them in front of something, therefore they're quiet, school will be doing the rest, and that's where we've got major problems. The other thing, when it comes to relationships, because this yet again affects the children, why is the divorce rate so high? Well, they're constantly told. I mean, and what is this with women with all these fucking filters on? And they're surprised whenever they meet some guy when they've got out there, you know, and they look like fucking something that is primeval, and you certainly know what the filtered image was, and then they're like, "Oh, he ditched me," or he never. Like maybe when he wasn't expecting something that fucking. You know, you were surprised it was that far inshore when it was supposed to be looking like that with tits out to here and all the rest of it. There is this. I honestly, I'd love to maybe do vids of my own, but I know that, for example, I see on YouTube there's lots and lots of what did they call it? MGTOW or what, you know?
Oh, MGTOW.
I mean, this all plays into the occult. And the lightweights and you know, the estrogen lovers, you know, the Soya Brigade and so much more. And honestly, I've talked to so many women over the years, and they're like, fucking hell, you know, why doesn't my other half know this? Well, how about you don't tell him? You know, how about guesswork and we are not fucking mind readers. How about communication? How about less attitude, more listening from both parties? All that kind of stuff and so much more, you know? And girls are naturally sneaky, as an example. And I'll say, well, look, if you are doing more of the cooking than him, well, make sure that you're giving him stuff that keeps him, well, you know, motivated, perky. Do you see where I'm going? Blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, so many things are turning around. When they're actually invested in each other, they're not just invested in each other, they're invested in their families, they're sharing data with other people. Just drop the wee hint there. Hey, listen, feeling a bit down? Here, try some of these D3s, K2s. Well, I didn't go to a doctor. I'm not talking about fucking, you know, some pill popping shenanigans. Take a few of these, take them over a period of days and let me know how you're getting on. Actually, Scott, I felt a wee bit better about that. Oh, you know, and I noticed another wee, you know, side effect of that, X, Y, and Z. There is so many things that you can do to help people, both individually and societally, that none of these experts are ever bloody talking about. And that's why, have you ever noticed the more money you put towards something run by experts, the worse it gets? Cancer would be a great example of that. I mean, think about it. Only a few decades ago, most people smoked. Most people, many of them fucking chain smokers. And the cancer rates were never as high as they are now. Apparently, the turn of the century, the 1900s, it was something like 1 in 11. You know, it's now
like 1 in 2 now.
It's 1 in 2.
Yeah.
You know, and all they do to sell this to the public is, I don't know, I don't watch TV, but you know, you through looking at things like the Daily Mail, you know, what is it? Strictly Dancing and all the rest of it. Have you noticed more and more over the years? Oh, well, you know, go girl. She's got cancer. He's got cancer. She's got this, blah, 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 that. And it's all fucking clapping like fucking seals, you know, and only lately I've noticed. I mean, I used to say to people years ago, how is it royalty never seemed to have cancer? Even Princess Margaret, she didn't die of cancer. But I think the think tanks over time got to realize, wait a minute, yeah, that's going to start looking a bit off. So all of a sudden, in the last couple of years, Charles,
Kate,
yeah, you know,
no, I'm way on that one. It's the same with the Rothschilds and all that as well. I mean, look at these guys; like they seem to live till they're like, fucking hell. I mean, just you know what I mean? They're walking about like shriveled old prunes, and like none of them ever seem to come down really with anything like cancer, as far as I'm aware. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's probably been. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think any of them have ever really died of like cancer. They've all just died of old age when they reach about 200. You know?
well, exactly. And many of them are. And remember, from the occult point of view, many of them are very involved in the occult. For some aspects of the occult, I mean, it's, as I keep saying, it's a very complex network. But for some, they have to perform in front of others. So they look after themselves nutritionally and take various supplementation because they can't be the head, for example, of certain covens unless they can perform in front of others in their ritualistic shenanigans. Yeah. So they're very aware of what they can and can't consume. And even when it comes to phones, tell me, and by the way, this will probably all change tomorrow with AI and there'll be fucking 50 million photographs of Charles on a mobile. But have you really ever seen Charles with a mobile? Or many senior royalty with a mobile? Oh, don't get me wrong. They'll have some fucking useful tool in the background taking all the fucking calls and being irradiated, but not them. Yeah? There is a lot of nuance, but there's a lot of just blatantly in your face data that most people just don't take on board.
I don't think I've ever seen any of them with a mobile, actually. I come to think of it. We're coming up on the 2 hour mark here.
Yeah, so I'd say as a first stream, this has probably been appalling.
It's been all right until you start talking about fannies, like, but you know.
Hey, look, seriously, like, at the end of the fucking day, right? I mean, some people will be pissed off that we're swearing. You know, oh look,
no,
it's a sign of such limited intellect.
But I think, to be honest, we get away with it because we're Scottish. That's the difference. Like,
I can't tell you the amount of underlying occultists I've had as clients, because they've always known, clients that I've had in the past. I'm like not hiding it. I'm like, look, this is wrong, that's wrong. I've left data on their hard drives and all the rest of it as well. But they've always known I'd never mention their names ever, and I'd never take their data, show it to others, steal it, none of that. For so many reasons. Because listen, if you haven't got your word, you've got fuck all. Simple as. Absolutely simple as. And I learned a lot from many occultists as I was sharing data with them. You know, even things about nutrition, whatever else. They would tell me things like, it was an occultist that said to me, before I knew about it, don't drink diet drinks. They've got this aspartame, initially they'd said to me, that's just pure poison. Like, you really don't want to. I'd have appreciated more if they'd said it's the artificial sweeteners or it's this or that. But, they did drop hints to me as well about many things. Even the toothpaste they use. None of them use fluoride toothpaste. None of them. They all use other toothpaste, which have got none of these things or so many other chemicals. And here's another thing. Even as an early Gen Xer, I remember through my childhood, it was all sort of bristle. It was wooden brushes and bristle. Honestly, it had bristle was maybe made out of whatever, badger, whatever the fuck. Yeah, because even to this day, there are certain companies that still do that. But then, early 80s onwards, in come all these plastic brushes. And what people are doing is quite literally grinding a plastic into their fucking teeth. And have you ever seen teeth under a microscope? It might feel smooth, but you're quite literally. And believe me, I was still guilty of that, knowing many other things up until maybe about 10 years ago, which is a disgrace, really, when I think about it. But over time, I looked at other options. And although initially I went for a brush that was quite literally, I think it was like badger bristle or something, and it was owned by a company called Kent. I remember at the time doing a vid on it, and all of a sudden the brushes went from about £3 a brush to about £7, because some bastard bought the company or something, literally just on the strength of that, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to make out like a bandit." Anyway, I found out on alternative source for, so I think it was bamboo. But and it's uses is it castor oil that's made into, like there's variations that you can actually find if you start looking that are really beneficial. And all you do is to make sure that once you brush your teeth, make sure you take the water out the brush. So just shake it and then maybe just wipe it on a towel, because that way they'll last longer. Anyway, on that cheery note, it's just under 2 hours.
Aye, which is usually the cut-off point for me when I've done streams in the past. So, aye, good wee chat. I did have rakes of tabs open, but we've not really gone through them. We not really needed to be honest.
That guy's racist. You bastard! You fucking giving fuck.
To be fair, I'll just briefly show what I did have up. Just here. This here. Because I've been talking about this for fucking like a while now. Like me and my on-off sort of ex/missus, whatever you want to call her, like me and her used to fucking notice it all the time. And like we felt like we were going mad. Like nobody else was noticing this, right? And only now, finally, they're starting to talk about it. For example, it says here that the Transport Research Laboratory in Berkshire will equip the car with specialist instruments to measure light levels in the same way drivers experience them. This article here, though, complaints about headlight glare are increasing, with the RAC saying it's increasingly receiving complaints about headlight glare from drivers, its head of policy said. So they're finally starting to look into it, which I don't know if anything will ever come out of it, but it's fucking it's difficult driving at night sometimes for me. Like, it's almost as if cars have got like full beam on all the time. Like, and then if they're behind you, for example.
Oh, it's fucking awful. Yeah,
you
really,
think they're
really,
they think
really dangerous.
Yeah, they think that. Yeah, well, I always feel like sometimes that somebody's trying to flash me, like even though it's just they're going over a bump or something. But it's when they're coming towards you, and obviously where I live up in the Highlands, so like anytime I want to leave here, I have to use the A9, and that night I'd see at night with all these new headlights. Oh, it drives me demented. The other thing that I obviously had up as well was just for anybody that wasn't aware, sure you
right. Well, before you go into that, just while you're on that subject, think about these evil bastards wanting to get people out of cars.
Yeah.
To discourage them from being in cars when it becomes so uncomfortable for them to drive at night that they stop doing it.
That's pretty much exactly what I've been saying myself when I've spoken about it, like on my Telegram channel over the years. Well, not over the years, like over the months. That's my theory as well. Like, so my theory will either be disproven, or not, if something actually comes off this now, like because it's starting to be spoken about. Will anything change? Well, time will tell. But it's that's what these articles are alluding to. A lot of people just won't go out at night, especially elderly people, and that you know, it's putting people off driving, including myself sometimes. And the other thing I had open just quickly for people who weren't aware was the Scottish Government U-turn on bus passes for asylum seekers, and it's been welcomed. But the Church of Scotland has welcomed a renewed commitment from the government to pilot a free bus pass scheme for asylum seekers. Cabinet Secretary for Transport Fiona Hislop has promised MSPs that the policy would be implemented before the end of this parliamentary term in 2026. So this is a thing again now. Thanks, government. You're such great people.
And then think about it. This is the Church of Scotland. By the way, which goes back to what I was saying to you earlier about how certain, shall we say, alternative media, they sort of infer that it's just one specific, shall we say, religious aspect. And I've always said it's behind them all. It really fucking is. You know, as above, so below. Because I would argue the churches to this day have an awful lot of power because they are the priesthood. Yeah. And even when you look at the head of the Church of England, you know, what's his name? Wasn't he an ex-banker? In fact, if you look at people like Bill Schnevlin, Fritz Springmeier, various others, they were saying like a lot of what is deemed illuminists is their calling is they enjoy going in to the priesthoods to be seen as priests. It's not just about monetary gain, although they live pretty well if you work it out. But because remember, they're doing Lucifer's work, you know.
Yeah, and I think as well, on a side note regarding Christianity, like, I mean, I do know people that are like pretty devout Christians and whatnot, but like the modern day church in and of itself, I just think, and it, just to quote a word you used earlier on the stream, fucking soy. Like, absolute soy, you know. That's not to take any away from like Christians in general, but like the churches as an entity, fucking soy, absolute soy and corrupt. But anyway, on that note, I'm gonna have to go and feed my dog and whatnot. Well, it's time for his din-dins, so after I come off here, but no, appreciated the wee chat, like, and I hope.
If you want, give me a wee bell later on anyway, and let me know what you thought the stream, and did you upload it, whatever else, blah blah blah. I'm talking maybe what, about 9-10 o'clock, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, no worries.
Give me a wee bell. Anyway, whoever's listening and watching, you've been great company.
All right. Adios. And if you are still watching all the way at the end at this point, I will get there, folks. I'll try no more. I'm trying to have no more meltdowns. I'll get there. And on that note, adios, amigos.